Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show live. Day one of free agency. Well, still going on. We could still have some things happen this evening as we're talking here. And of course, we'll break them down live as they take place. But we're going to go over everything that happened across the NBA today. An exciting day. A lot of moves made. Some good, some not so good. So we're going to break it all down right here with you. If you are joining us live, you're coming in here from the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Please make sure you are subscribed to our channel. And don't forget to turn on notifications. We're going to be doing this each night, breaking things down, talking about what happened and what it means in the broad picture of the NBA. Keith, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I was so out of practice, I didn't have my camera in the right place, and I had to fix that while we were getting the show started here. We get a little Team USA Spain on in the
All
background,
right.
our elimination game at the Olympics. So we're psyched. We're pumped about this. So we're ready to go. We're gonna go through each team, what they didn't do today, and all that good stuff. We'll also talk a little bit of the other things that they've done throughout the course of the off season since their seasons ended, since some of these trades were agreed to a while back. But we're going to get into it, give you all the signings, re-signings, trades, all that good stuff.
And I will ask this, those of you who are watching live, that you guys are in the chat, it's a little bit easier sometimes for you guys to multitask than it is for us. So if we're like in depth talking about something and something big happens and we don't notice it, let us know. Okay. Fire it off in the
Yeah, no
chat.
doubt.
Tell us, say, hey, Shams just broke this giant news or something like that. So we can discuss live here on the show anything that does break as we're going through. But let's just go team by team. And I figured let's go by division. Which, Keith, that means if we're going alphabetical, the Atlantic Division would be first, which lands us with your team, the Boston Celtics.
Yay. Yeah, nothing. Crickets. Yeah, no. Yeah, they haven't done anything as far as free agency goes, as far as adding players. They've added four guys via trade: Al Horford, Josh Richardson. Those ones are done. Uh, Chris Dunn and Bruno Fernando sounds like still headed on their way to Boston for Tristan Thompson. We'll see. Obviously, they traded Kemba Walker out in the Al Horford trade. But then free agency, they lost a key player in Evan Fournier, signed with the New York Knicks, 4 years, 78 million. Sounds like there's a player option on that last year of that deal, so probably more closer to a 3 year, $58 million deal. And then Semi Ojeleye, defensive minded forward. He's also headed out. He's joined the Milwaukee Bucks on what is likely a 1 year minimum contract there for Ojeleye. So Fournier is a pretty big loss, but when they acquired Richardson the other day, that writing was kind of on the wall that that's the direction it was going to go.
Do you agree with that move for the Celtics? Like, do you feel better with Josh Richardson given his contract situation than giving Fournier what he just got from the? I mean, I was a little bit surprised by how much money he got out on the market.
Yeah, in a vacuum for 1 year, no. I would have rather have had Fournier. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's a better player and a better fit, but I think it's those extra years. The
Yeah.
Celtics very clearly are making 2022 a priority. They want to have clean books for that year's free agency, whether
No,
that's a run at
why?
Bradley Beal or not, who
I was gonna
knows,
say
right? Yeah, let's see. But, we'll get into that one because he's got some help coming in,
that's right.
headed his way. So, but yeah, it's they that's their priority is keep the books clean and go. So, we'll see. That's the thing. Anytime you play the cap space game, it's always a little tough because cap space. Last I checked, they don't score any points, grab any rebounds, or block any shots. So it's a little difficult to make that work here in the interim.
And let's go there next. You mentioned Washington adding some pieces and things of that nature. One of the pieces that they could be adding now, it's just coming out. Spencer Dinwiddie. This is still in the rumor
Yeah.
stage. This is nothing agreed upon yet, but it sounds like 3 year deal, 60 million would have to be a sign and trade. So Brooklyn, what do you make of their day? We know they're bringing back Blake Griffin, and now it sounds like they might be getting something. We don't know what just yet. Maybe we'll know shortly, but they're going to be getting something in a sign and trade for Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, we heard uh fairly, what was it, a couple days ago, that
Yeah.
they were interested in Dinwiddie, maybe using one or two of the Lakers guys that they're going to get in the
Hmm.
Westbrook trade. And that makes sense to an extent because I think those guys would help Brooklyn quite a bit, whether it be Caldwell Pope or Kuzma or both or Harrell or, any combination of that grouping, would give the Nets some good depth. But the challenge is those guys can't be retraded together. for 60 days. So I don't know if the Nets are gonna hold this all up, and how that'll work. So this one's gonna be very interesting and fun to see how it ultimately comes together, if it does come together. But on the net side, yeah, they've lost now Spencer Dinwiddie, um, a big loss in aggregate, but I think in the long run, or I guess in the more, if you look at the more recent
Hmm.
history, not a huge loss because they didn't have him for most of last year. They've got James Harden now. And they added Javon Carter, or will add Javon Carter. That he'll probably soak up most of the backup point guard minutes behind Kyrie Irving. Landry Shamet headed out as well. And then, as you said, they re-signed Blake Griffin. They lost Jeff Green. So, for the Nets, I think it's kind of they're about the same.
Yeah,
I
which is really
guess they,
good.
you know,
like
yeah,
they're
really
incredible.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's see what they get for Dinwiddie, and then and then we can evaluate this one a little bit more fully. So maybe by the time we're done with the show, we'll
Well,
have those details flow out to us. But you want to move on
yes, the Knicks.
to a team that was very busy, the Knicks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredibly
Um,
busy.
yeah. So the Knicks focused early on re-signing their own guys, Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel. 3 years, 30 million for Burks. 3 years, 32 million for Noel. Pretty good value contracts, I
Yeah.
think, for both of those guys. They're going to lose Reggie Bullock. He's going to head off to the Dallas Mavericks, so that's a loss for them. Good shooter on the wing for the Knicks. Then they added Fournier, as we said, and then they're going to re-sign Derrick Rose as well. For the max that they can re-sign him for, 3 years, a little over 40 million or so in that range. So Julius Randle became fully guaranteed, as we knew he
Hmm.
would. There. So for the Knicks, I like these re-signings. I think the Fournier edition is a little interesting.
Yeah.
It's a little odd that they timed all these up to be 3-year contracts. I don't know exactly what they think is happening in 3 years, but they've clearly got some kind of plan going. But so they're kind of the same, running the same team back with Fournier in for Bullock. And if you look at it that way, they're a better team because Fournier is a better player than Bullock.
Yeah, they're better in that sense, but I don't understand the long-term commitment to Fournier. I would have rather
Yeah,
seen. I feel like it's not quite the same level, but this is more of an old Knicks move. We got used to like the new Knicks that we saw last season that just made all these smart moves and everything worked out. And look, Fournier could still work out. He could still be a really nice fit for them, but did they really move the needle that much? Are they that much better than the team they had last season? I don't know. I mean, they were the 4 seed,
yeah.
but some other teams in the East are going to get better too. Like, I don't look at the Knicks and say, man, they really vaulted into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. I feel like there's still a significant tier break, and that's a little disappointing if you're going to spend that much money and probably only make a marginal improvement.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, that's going to be the tough part, right there. They're going to need guys to play above their heads like they did last year,
Hmm.
and then guys to continue to be good. And they need Fournier to come in, but I think Fournier's playmaking, shooting, that gives them something that they didn't have last season. So I like that one for them.
Okay.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. Let's talk
Um,
76ers.
Yeah, they haven't done a whole lot.
Mm-mm.
Lost Dwight Howard to the Lakers, so we'll talk about that
Yeah.
when we get to the Lakers. And then they're re-signing Furkan Korkmaz. So bringing back their shooter. Cleveland was really pursuing Korkmaz pretty heavily, and Philly's bringing him back 3 years, 15 million. Pretty
Solid
good.
deal.
I think
Yeah.
that's pretty good value. Yeah, for a guy who's a pretty good shooter. Okay, especially when you're looking at what some of the other shooters got
Ooh, Duncan Robinson.
today.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
yeah, Duncan Robinson, Doug McDermott. I tweeted, I'm retroactively mad at my mom that she wouldn't let me stay out on the court and shoot a little longer and told me it was time to come in. But yeah, so good work by Philly. They're not done. We'll see what happens with Ben
Mhm.
Simmons. They've got Danny Green as a free agent. George Hill has a guaranteed date to come. So and Daryl Morey, he's just going to keep tinkering the whole way. But
Mhm.
the Ben Simmons stuff's kind of floating over all of this.
Yeah, that's just it. The Ben Simmons thing is hanging over them. The last we heard, and this was the most recent update today. I can't remember the source off the top of my head, but that they were still looking for like 4 first-round picks and an all-star. The type of return for Ben Simmons where you would say, if you didn't know better, you would say, oh, they clearly just don't want to trade him, right? The type of where if you were to ask a team for that much, it would just shut down the negotiations, right? They wouldn't even bother
Yeah.
countering because you're so far apart. At some point, maybe that's going to change. Maybe teams raise their offers a little bit. Maybe the 76ers come down a lot. I don't know. But right now, Ben Simmons is still a 76er, and that is kind of hanging over that whole franchise.
Yeah. Yep.
Another team that made a move today lost arguably their greatest player ever, the Toronto
Yeah,
Raptors.
without a doubt.
Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry is gone now, joining the Miami Heat. And the Raptors do get something back in a sign and trade, Precious Achua and Goran Dragic. I've seen people mentioning a Dragic buyout, and to me that doesn't make sense for the Raptors to do that. I mean, Dragic is still a quality player. I would think if anything, if they hang on to him for a bit, they can probably flip him for something, even if they decide that they really just don't want to. A buyout just doesn't seem like something that would be sensible for Masai to pull off.
Yeah, my guess is Toronto at this point now too, the cap space is basically gone. So I
Mhm.
think it's I think we're in a position where it's just not they don't need to buy him out to go sign anybody. It's not
No.
a thing there. So I think it is going to be with this situation, what we're going to see here is they keep Dragic or they flip him in another trade. Sounds like the Dallas Mavericks are interested in Goran Dragic, so I think that could
Hmm.
definitely happen. So we'll see if that goes that way. They could put together a decent little package to send to the Raptors to get some stuff. So yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Tough to see them lose Kyle Lowry. We'll see what happens with that one. And then and then I think we're in a position now with the Raptors of we're going to see where they go. They re-signed Gary Trent Jr.
Yeah.
Big contract, there to him, 3 years, 54 million, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
with that one. So yeah, a really nice deal for Trent there. So yeah, I mean they've got their team kind of fairly well filled out. Still need another big, but it sounds like they're going to operate and stay as an over the cap team, which maybe allows them to keep a couple of their non-guaranteed guys and go from there.
Keith, this is, I mean, it's somewhat breaking news. So Jordan Schultz, ESPN, mentioning that DeMar DeRozan has both the Clippers and Spurs interested in signing him. And I guess we can probably get to him when we get to the Clippers or the Spurs.
Sure.
But, this is one of the things that we've talked about in this market, and you and I have been talking about this for a while. What happens when the cap space dries up is going to be very fascinating, and I feel like we're kind of there, right? We're
Yeah.
seeing that with a number of teams where the landing spots just don't exist anymore, and some guys are going to get squeezed. I feel like we've entered, or at least we're about to enter, that portion of the free agency process. So we're going to see some kind of little bit of weirdness. I think we might see some 1-year deals or 1+1 deals for some of these
Yeah.
guys who frankly are worth more, but just there's not really any place left for them to go with cap room.
Yeah, that's it. We're basically down to the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Pelicans
Hmm.
with cap space left. The Knicks have a little bit left over, but I don't think we're going to see them, do much with that space. So yeah, so we're kind of getting down to it now. So we'll see, what this means for DeMar
Hmm.
DeRozan. We're starting to get to a point too where executing signing trades gets a little difficult because some of these
Yeah.
teams have used a lot of space, starting to get capped out. So yeah, it's going to be, kind of fun to watch this play out, but maybe not fun for these players because
No, not fun for the players.
they're definitely not going to get those contracts. And what's going to be funny now is this is when you start seeing agents get strongly yelled at by their players, and you told me
Hmm.
this was here for me. Might be. Dennis Schroeder situation here, so we'll see.
Ooh,
We'll get there,
yeah.
a little bit later when we talk about the guys who are still left. So, yeah, it's yeah, but yeah, for Toronto, as we were there, let's see with that one. You ready to go on to the Central Division? And
I am mentally, I am
yeah,
prepared. Emotionally, I'm not prepared. I'm definitely
yeah,
not
I know
prepared for
you're gonna be
this.
right.
The
All right,
Chicago
breaking news
Bulls.
from Shams.
Oh,
76ers are planning to waive George Hill. No real
oh,
surprise there.
okay.
George Hill had only about 1.2 million of a $10 million contract. I wouldn't
Hmm.
rule out maybe he returns there, like we saw with. We'll talk it when we get to Detroit, but that's kind of what happened with Corey Joseph.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. All right. So the Bulls. I think
Yep.
they made one of the best signings of the day with Lonzo Ball. I think that was a great deal for him. I think
Agreed.
he's the kind of piece that can push the Bulls to the next level. What was the dollar amount again? I know it was 4 years,
85
78?
million.
85.
85.
Okay. There were a bunch of different numbers that got thrown out there. I was totally fine with that. You know, Lonzo is a fantastic young player, good defender. Offensively, you've got other guys
become
that
a
can
good
handle the
shooter.
basketball, become a better shooter, 38% from three recently. You know, and then you add in the switchability on the defensive end of the floor for a team that has put a lot into we need to make the playoffs right now. I think this is a great signing, and I think it's a good signing for their future too, because he's still extremely young and somebody that can grow with them. So I like that move a lot from the Bulls. Keith, before we move on to the one that's gonna tear me to shreds, what did you think about the Lonzo signing?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's going to be a sign and trade. Clearly, right, the Bulls were an over the
Mhm.
cap team, so they're going to send back Tomas Satoransky and a signed Garrett Temple. So, for everybody who's ever asked, can you do a double sign and trade? Yes, you can, and this is
Yep,
going to be it. So we'll talk about Satoransky and Temple on the Pelicans portion
Pelicans.
of this, but yeah, Lonzo Ball, I love that addition. Pretty good on and off the ball now at this point in his career. Um, we know Zach Levine and Nick Vucevic are going to play through those guys a lot. So I think Lonzo working as a cutter and as a spot up shooter really works quite well with those guys. And as you mentioned, brings the defense, and that's primarily what that second edition was. So I'll give you, if you, I know you don't want to probably wreck your carpet in there, but if you need to pour one out for your boy Alex
Oh,
Caruso, headed to the Chicago Bulls, and I saw someone in the chat say, yeah, well, will he come back for for a a discounted deal with the Lakers? Will he back out? No, that's not it. Once we're down to
no,
this point, yes, maybe on occasion a
it's
guy will
happened.
do that. Go. So, but I don't think so. Trevor, they're saying in the chat they're having trouble hearing you. Can
I
you turn
just
me up?
boosted. Yeah, I just
There we
boosted
go.
your audio a bit for you.
All right, perfect.
Um, so Caruso, the deal, I'm totally fine with $37 million. That's solid. Good money for him there. One of the best defensive guards or better defensive guards in the NBA. He's a guy who knows how to play his role. Um, you really gain an appreciation for how good he is in terms of off-ball defense, in terms of his communication and all that when you're watching him play. He's a very, very impactful player there. The Lakers will get into their side of it in just a bit, but I think the Bulls got a really good one here, particularly if they're looking to improve their defense. Between Lonzo and Alex Caruso, the Bulls' perimeter defense just got significantly better. So
Yep.
I like this get for them. I think he's a nice signing and could be a big piece for them moving forward here. It's not as impactful, I think, as the Lonzo signing, but this is a guy that can help get you to where you want to go in terms of the Bulls being a consistent playoff team.
Yeah, absolutely. I jokingly said you don't have to worry about Nick Vucevic as a rim protector if the guys can't get to the rim because they can't get by the perimeter defenders. So yeah, I think they're in a pretty good shape. From that position, let's see what they do now because right again, they've got to fill out a little bit of the depth.
Hmm.
So let's see what they do, especially up front. Team USA trailing, or they actually just took back the lead
Oh,
early in
okay.
the second quarter, so they're up 22-21 over Spain here in the quarterfinals. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. Let's see who's next. Cleveland.
Yep.
Big deal for them was Jared Allen. 5 years, 100 million.
Yes.
Re-signing Jared Allen, so that's a massive contract. I don't love that kind of money for the center when you just
Just
drafted Evan
drafted.
Mobley. We don't know if they
Yes.
can play together or not. And I like Jared Allen, and I'm also not somebody who believes the center position is dead. So I think that is it's just tough. That's just a lot of money. 20 million on average is just a lot of money.
It is. It's a lot, a lot. It's enough to where if it doesn't work with Evan Mobley, trading him could get a little bit challenging, right? Like if things clearly don't work, it's enough of a contract. I mean, look, you could stack up enough contracts to get there, but I'm saying
Sure.
finding a taker, if it's clear that he's not really worth quite this much, could get a little bit tricky. It's not the kind of contract that you could instantly flip because there are a lot of teams that, well, I mean, you mentioned the center's not dead. No, it's not, but it's also not necessarily the position that you want to allocate all of your money towards unless you believe you have a true difference maker. I've compared it a lot, and a lot of people have made this comparison to the running back position in football, where you don't want to be the team that's paying a ton to a guy. You'd rather just pay a veteran minimum type salary or draft a rookie in the situation of the NFL and spend your money elsewhere. And so that's the way
Yeah.
I view the center position. Same thing. I would rather spend most of my money elsewhere unless you have the guy at that spot. I don't know that that's Jared Allen. I think there's the potential there for it to be. But that said, they knew they were going to keep him, and if this was the cost, I'm okay with the gamble. It's more than I would have wanted to spend, but I feel like the Cavs kind of had to. And if they have to make some moves later on to balance things out, hopefully they can do that.
Yeah, and then their draft day trade will process at the end of the week with
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Rubio for Torian Prince, so that gives
Yes.
them that point guard depth that they haven't had in a while. So I think that's good. Hey, Will in the chat, we're not going to answer your question because if you ask it 37 times, we're going to purposely ignore your question. So just stop, man. We get it. So
we will
um,
we will get to some of these guys. Don't
yeah,
worry as
we'll
we
get to
as we
some
go
of those,
through.
but not if you ask 50 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Cavs, let's see what else they do. They still need some wing players. I think they need another shooter. I think they've got some stuff that they need to figure out. So, look, I want to go back to something on Chicago that we kind
Uh-huh.
of skipped past. Zach Levine saying he wants a new contract. That came out.
Oh.
So clearly they're not doing a contract extension and renegotiation. And with an extension, I'm not sure that they're going to do, that either, because I just think Levine will forget some. So he would give up some money there. So I think that starts to be the challenge for him on that one. So I think
Mhm.
ultimately we will see we will see him go into free agency, but at least he's made his feelings known. He wants paid.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether that's with Chicago or somebody else, we'll see. But this is part of why Chicago is pushing so hard to make the playoffs. They want to show Zach Levine, look, you can win here. We are going to do this.
Yep.
Let's go Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get the number 1 draft pick, Cade Cunningham. Now there, made some moves.
Had to
I'm
sign
not.
a couple bigs, right? That's what you do
Yeah,
if you're Troy Weaver.
that's right. That's
Sign a
right.
couple centers.
I don't know how I
Yeah,
feel
right.
about what the Pistons did today. Let's get into it.
I kind of like it actually.
Okay.
I think Kelly Olynyk's played pretty well. I think
Hmm.
he gives them a guy who fits at least as good as what Mason Plumlee would have given them. Little odd that you're replacing him. He's coming in to replace Plumlee. You could say, why not just keep Plumlee? But
Hmm.
I kind of get it. Trey Lyles, then another big. They didn't really have anybody on this roster other than kind of Jeremy Grant, who is more 4-5 ish.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Grant, you're talking extreme small ball. If you're going to play him at the 5, so yeah, so I kind of like those two guys. I think that they'll both be solid, along with Isaiah Stewart returning. Um, there. And then they re-signed Corey Joseph, who they had waived a couple days earlier. So they waived him because he had a very small guarantee. So then they're going to bring him back. And then on the losses side, lost Wayne Ellington to the Lakers. Not a it's a, This is going to sound weird when I say this. Not a huge loss for Detroit because he wasn't playing that much, but that is a nice pickup for the Lakers. But we'll get to that
Hmm.
on the Lakers side. And then Mason Plumlee, of course, will get traded to the Charlotte Hornets. So I think a positive day for the Pistons. None of those contracts were crazy. I think they were all right within the realm that made sense.
I I feel like it's a bit of an overpay for Olenek. And I
Okay,
like, look, trust me, Olenek has lit up my Lakers plenty of times, right? It's happened. So I get it. I think there's some appeal there. It's a bit more than I would have, but again, it's not bad. It's not
sure,
terrible, but
yeah,
it's a little bit more than I was expecting to see Kelly Olenek go for. So that was my one kind of quibble with
I
their
can see
moves
that.
today. But
Yeah,
otherwise,
can't
but again,
can't really
it's a
argue with that.
minor thing. It's a minor
Yeah,
thing.
yep.
All right.
All right, Pacers.
Pacers. Yep. Let's
Yeah.
go Indiana.
Yeah, so they re-signed TJ McConnell. They're going to bring in Torrey Craig from the Phoenix Suns. That's the kind of some part of their additions.
I
And
like
then
that deal.
the Torrey Craig one.
The Torrey Craig. I just thought it was
Yeah,
just a solid, it was a single, right? They hit a
yeah,
single on that one.
yep. Yeah, and that's it, right? They can't all be home runs. Sometimes
Yep.
you hit enough singles and you're gonna win games. So yeah, I like the Torrey Craig addition for them too. Gives them along with McConnell, that's kind of scrappy defense, right?
Yep.
Behind a bunch of guys in their opening group that it's not that they're necessarily bad defensive players, but those two coming in, they'll come in behind Brogdon, Lever, Warren, and really kind of change games a little bit. Lost Doug McDermott. That's kind of a big loss. He had a
Yeah.
really, really good year for them as a shooter off the bench, and then they're going to trade Aaron Holiday to the Washington Wizards. In the one of the draft day trades that they made. So, but yeah, I think overall I'm okay with this. Holiday was clearly
Mhm.
behind Brogdon and then a re-signed McConnell anyway. So moving him to get in some younger guys via the draft, not the worst thing. And yeah, and I like that Torrey Craig one. We'll see what they do. They need to get a backup big man. They're really shy there because McDermott was in effect their backup four. And then let's see what happens with Miles Turner. There was a lot of
Yeah.
trade buzz around Miles Turner. That's probably going to continue.
Yeah, that's not going anywhere. So I would expect there could be a move there. It could be this week that we see something really come to
Mm-hmm.
fruition. Once the free agent frenzy kind of dies down, which we're not out of the woods yet on that, but that's going
Yeah.
to happen, and then we're going to see some more teams focus in on trades now that they've got a sense for what they've got. The Bucks. I mean, Bobby Portis.
Yeah.
They love him there. And I was happy to see him stick
And
in Milwaukee.
Bobby Portis resigned using his non-bird rights, so he didn't even
Yeah.
take the taxpayer mid-level. So they still have that open. He took the
Yep.
kind of the least amount he could from the Bucks, while maximizing their non-bird rights. So that's really good. My guess is when it comes out, that'll be a 1+1. He'll opt
Yeah.
out next year, and then they'll be able to re-sign him to a much bigger contract when they have his early bird rights. And then I mentioned they added Semi Ojeleye. Yeah, he's fine. He's it's oddly enough, the guy he's best positioned to defend is a big ball handling forward like
Hmm.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, so at least he'll make him work in practice, I guess. And then PJ Tucker, though, that's a huge loss for them, and they have no way to replace him because
Yep.
they all they have left is the taxpayer mid level. So they're going to get somebody because, as we mentioned before, guys are starting to get squeezed on money and opportunity and
Yep.
spaces. They're the champs. They should be right back in title contention next year. So they'll get somebody good with the taxpayer mid level. But yeah, not losing Tucker, especially losing him to a conference rival. That's really tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when he was one of your main weapons against the high scoring wings in the NBA that they're likely to see on their path through the playoffs. So the defending champs, I do think that that's a loss for them, like a significant loss. And maybe they can try to find somebody with that taxpayer mid level to somewhat replace that. But PJ Tucker was pretty good for them. So that definitely hurts.
Yeah, no, yeah, that one's tough. So, but they're the champs. They'll be all right.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a team that spent some money today, the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah,
The Atlanta Hawks
re-signing Trae
spent
Young.
some big money, big money, but that was money that is well worth it. Absolutely
Yep.
money they should spend, and they should be absolutely thrilled that they are getting Trae Young locked up now.
Yep. So what Trae Young agreed to was the quote unquote rookie supermax extension, if you will. So if he qualifies for that, 207 million. That's
Hmm.
the same deal we're going to see Luka Doncic eventually agree to here. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander signed a deal that could be the supermax if he hits certain escalators in there. But Trae Young is coming out of the gates, and it looks like that's where he'll be. And all he has to do is kind of repeat his performance of the last year, which he should at least be able to do. And give a quick Team USA update, down 49-31 late in the first half. So not necessarily looking good for Team USA
49 to
right now.
31.
40-31.
Oh,
Sorry, I might have said
40 to
It was
31. I mean, that's still
yeah,
bad, but
I might have said 49. I apologize if I did. But 40 to
yikes.
31. Yeah. They're starting to pick up the defense a little bit. So, yeah. And then Atlanta's added Gorgie Jang.
Hmm.
He's coming in. He's going to be kind of the replacement for Onyeka Okongwu early in the season, who's out with after having shoulder surgery. He'll miss the beginning part of the year. They re-signed Solomon Hill, kind of versatile forward who I know they liked. Had his moments with them, and then they're going to trade out Chris Dunn, Bruno Fernando, and they're going to add DeLon Wright from the Sacramento Kings.
Hmm.
Eventually, we think whenever that trade gets completed. So they've kind of filled their backup point guard spot. They filled their backup big man spot, and they signed Trae Young to an extension. The Hawks are probably done this offseason.
Yeah. Yep. That'll
Oh,
do it
John
for.
Collins, geez, they got to still re-sign him. That
Oh,
hasn't happened
yes.
yet.
But he's
So
restricted. He's
he's
restricted. So,
restricted, and it's starting to
and
get a
there's not many
little
places for him to
trickier.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they just, to be fair and clear and
sure.
precise, they still need to do that. It's late, guys. It's after 1 o'clock here on the East
That's
Coast
right.
where I am. Charlotte.
Let's talk
Um,
about them.
yeah, you're going to add Mason Plumlee, as we talked about before.
Hmm.
They lost Devontae Graham and Cody Zeller. Devontae Graham's headed out in a sign and trade to the New Orleans Pelicans. They get a
Yep.
first round pick for him. So we'll find out what the
Nice.
protections are on that pick. But if they're not, too bad. I like that. He was going to be their third or fourth guard anyway. So,
Hmm.
now you recoup a first round pick. That's pretty good value. There, Cody Zeller, Plumlee, Plumlee Zellers, take your pick. I kind of like Cody Zeller. We'll talk about he's going to the Trailblazers. We'll talk about that when
Hmm.
we get to them. But yeah, I think Mason Plumlee, he'll be fine for them. You can run
Hmm.
some offense through him a little bit at the elbows. Be a good finisher in the pick and roll lob game with Ball and Hayward and Rozier. So, hey, well, let's see what else Charlotte does. But right now, they're probably at least even, I guess, with where they were last year. Maybe a little bit
Yeah.
worse after losing Devontae Graham.
Yeah, but then again, you're going to get some just organic growth from some of their young players. I think that's what they're going to be banking on in order to hit the next level and see real improvement. The Miami Heat, the big winner, right, of free agency so far, at least the biggest mover, picking up
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry.
Yep.
They win the Kyle Lowry sweepstakes, send out Precious Achua and Goran Dragic in order to get Kyle Lowry coming in. There's rumors swirling about DeMar DeRozan maybe being in play for them. They've got some other moves kind of up their sleeve here. Bring back Duncan Robinson. Also, they landed PJ Tucker. So look, they've made some real moves here, and they're trying to position themselves as a major contender here in the East.
Yeah, I think the DeRozan stuff is dead after the Tucker acquisition because he
Yeah.
he took the vast majority of the non-taxpayer mid-level.
Hmm.
But yeah, so we'll see. They're also going to add. They re-signed Dwayne Dedman, Duncan Robinson, as you said. What was it? 5 years, 90 million
90. Yeah.
for Robinson. So we've been saying Joe Harris money. Well, that's Joe Harris
There's
just
Joe
money
Harris money. Yeah.
right there. And then Max Struess and Gabe Vincent, their two-way players, got bumped up to standard deals on the minimum. Vincent has played kind of well. He's playing for Nigeria or played for Nigeria in the
Hmm.
Olympics, and did all right. And then Struess is a shooter, so this team still needs shooting. They re-signed Robinson, but they still need shooting. And then Trevor Ariza, they lost him to the Lakers. So good day for the Heat though. Kyle Lowry. Oh, and then Jimmy Butler is going to sign an extension too and
Yep.
add on to his contract. So let's see what they look like in 2-3 years. But
Right.
if you're coming off a championship run, you don't really care 2-3 years from now what your team really looks like. So still I think they need another big
Hmm.
on this team. So somebody who can be more of a four around Tucker there, and then their depth it's not great for the regular season for an older team. You need to add a little bit more depth to this roster.
Yeah. Agreed. I do have a question here from the chat. Somebody asking,
Sure.
could they still be a landing spot for Victor Oladipo? We've heard rumors about him potentially signing somewhere on a minimum.
Yeah.
Or do you think they're just out on
Yeah.
him?
I'm gonna see. I don't know, right? With that one, I think there was an opportunity there where they could re-sign him, because they do have his full bird right, so they could re-sign him and just make sure they stay under the hard cap. I think they're about 6-7 million under the hard cap right now, potentially. So I think that they could do that, and then they could maybe bring him in. I don't know what Woj bomb I dropped. Somebody said dropping a Woj bomb. I'm not sure what they meant in the chat. Um, but it's yeah, I think ultimately what you could see him do is if they could find a way to bring him back, I think he'd return to Miami, continue his rehab, try to build back his value. If not, then I think there's any number of teams where he could go to try and do a similar thing. But nobody's going to extend big money to Victor Oladipo right now because he hasn't proved he can stay healthy and be anything resembling the player that he was previous.
Exactly. So we'll see where he winds up, but it's going to be a prove it situation, no matter where he winds up going.
Yeah.
The big mover, the big mover of the day, your Orlando Magic, Keith.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna take a break. I'll be
Dr.
back in like an
Horton.
hour when you're done going
Yeah,
over
right.
everything the Magic did. Right?
Yeah. They lost Otto Porter Jr. The end.
The end.
And yeah,
That's
I
it.
mean, that's it, right? There's not a lot for this team to do. They have a lot of roster
Hmm.
spots spoken for. They're clearly building around their kids. There's been trade buzz around Terrence Ross
Hmm.
quite a bit. Yeah, we'll see if he, stays on this team. Jeff Weltman, their president of basketball operations, he's leery of going, fully all young guys. You want at least a handful of veterans to help lead them in the locker room, and they like Terrence Ross for that. But yeah, as for now, they lost Otto Porter Jr. to the Warriors and nothing else. So let's see, where Orlando goes from here, because nowhere to go but do more than that. Wizards.
I mean, trade away Russell Westbrook. That's the move that they're going to be making here
Mhm.
on the 6th when that's possible.
Yep.
We'll see exactly what that deal looks like. Sometimes these things can change a little bit.
Sure.
But the basic idea is Russell Westbrook going out in exchange for Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope plus the 22nd pick, which they already flipped, turned it into, I believe it was the 31st pick, and Aaron Holiday. And
Yeah.
then for the Washington Wizards, you've also got the rumor that Spencer Dinwiddie is on his way
Yeah.
on a 3-year, $60 million deal that will have to be a sign and trade with the Brooklyn Nets. They'd have to be kicking something back there. We'll see how they actually
I would
execute
not
that.
be surprised if they rope this in with the Lakers trade. Then that becomes
Okay.
a big trade there, because that would be the way to avoid the aggregation problem with the
Hmm.
players they're acquiring from the Lakers. You could then ship them direct to Brooklyn.
Hmm.
Dinwiddie goes to Washington, Westbrook goes to the Lakers, and off we go, and everybody's
Yeah.
happy. So my guess is that's probably what happens here. It just seems to be the way that makes the most sense.
Yeah. So there's gonna have some they're gonna have some figuring out to do. But
Yeah, they
Washington,
lost Alex Len too.
yes.
To the Sacramento Kings. So,
Yep. Other than that,
all right, West. Let's head
West.
west, young man.
Let's do it. Denver Nuggets. Let's
Oh,
go.
we're going there. All right,
Yeah, we'll go northwest first. So
perfect.
we'll go Denver Nuggets. You know what? This is a team that gosh, they just need to get healthy. You hate seeing what's gone on with them injury wise. That's certainly a challenge for them. If they're healthy, they can be one of the top teams in the Western Conference. But that's been a struggle for them lately. I don't know. What are your thoughts on what the Nuggets have done so far? I mean, look at say like a guy like JaMychal Green.
Yeah. So re-signing JaMychal Green, re-signing Will Barton, re-signing Austin Rivers,
Mm-hmm.
adding Jeff
A lot of
Green,
resigning.
and then they lost JaVale McGee. So essentially, JaMychal Green is coming back as their backup big behind Jokic, along with Jeff Green. Jeff Green has played significant minutes now as a backup small ball
Mm-hmm.
five. They also like Zeke Naji, their second year big man. They're going to work him into the rotation a little bit more. So the McGee loss is not that big. Re-signing Barton was a must. They had to do that to keep some backcourt scoring. My guess
Mm-hmm.
is he starts at the 2 to open the year, probably alongside Monte Morris is most likely guy to start next to him. And then when Jamal Murray comes back, Barton can either go to the bench, or maybe they bring Murray off the bench for whatever point he's back this year. With that, and then Austin Rivers, who played pretty well for them
Mm-hmm.
as a late season depth signing. They're bringing him back as well. I think the big thing was they all these contracts are short. I think 2 years for Barton, JaMychal Green, and Jeff Green, and then Rivers is only 1 year. So they did what they could to kind of keep things as clean as they can for a team that's gotten a little bit more expensive than I think they planned right away. So we'll see, how that comes together. But for now, I kind of like it for Denver. I think they did a good job of keeping themselves armed and ready to go in the Western Conference.
I really like the addition of Jeff Green. I mean, that's
Yeah,
he's just a nice versatile player, and I think you tweeted this. It's not for the minimum.
yeah,
That's a
finally.
big deal for him.
Yeah, I want to say he was on like 5 or 6 straight minimum contracts.
Yeah.
It was since his deal in Orlando for 15 million every year since he's been on a minimum. So yeah, good for Jeff Green.
All right. Moving on to Minnesota, and for the life of
Crickets.
me, I don't know what exactly
Nothing.
Minnesota did.
Yeah, they haven't done
Nothing.
anything yet in free agency. It's the Prince for Rubio trade.
Yeah,
That'll
that's about it.
happen there. So yeah, so that'll be it. I mean, I guess trading Rubio makes some sense. If you're really committed to D'Angelo Russell being at the point, the whole time there. Hold on, let's see. We're going right to halftime here with Team USA,
Okay.
and he's 43-43 at the half.
Ooh,
Tied
okay.
up. Guy from
Take
Spain
that.
missed a long one. Yeah. So I mean, you're moving off of Rubio, so you're going to have to really commit to D'Angelo Russell at the point. Probably bring back Jordan McLaughlin behind him is my guess. He's been on a two-way. Probably elevate him to the main roster. Or there's
Hmm.
still a ton of point guards out there, so might be able to poach one of them. And then Torian Prince comes in, and I think that's kind of all right to give them a little bit of forward depth. He's more of a pure four that they have not had on that roster in a while, but yeah, it was always going to be a little quiet because this team's just too tight against the tax to do much.
Agreed. All right. OKC trying to prove everybody wrong who thought they were trying to move Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They said, no, that's not what we call him anymore. Now we call him Pay Gilgeous-Alexander.
Look at that.
Yeah,
That's what you get
right.
here at 1:30
That's
in the
right.
morning.
That's what
NBA
happens.
Front office show.
That's what happens. And this is, people have been mentioning it in the chat. Trevor with his second straight live stream. That's right. This is like going on hour 3 of live streaming for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hanging in there though. But Shea Gilgeous-Alexander gets a big new contract. That was good to see. And then I got to bring this up. We heard the news broke, or the rumor broke anyway, that OKC was considering offering Spencer Dinwiddie 2 years, 40 million total, so 20 million per season, with the goal of trading him like as soon as they possibly could, flipping him. And what would they trade him for, Keith? More picks.
Yeah, because that's what they need.
That's what they need.
100% what that team needs. Yeah, I mean, we talked this on the draft show. If you guys want to go back and watch that one, I kind of, had a little fit about it. I didn't like, that very much. So yeah, it's, we'll see. Where OKC goes, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, that's huge. I'm glad
Yeah.
they inked him to that contract. I think it's 5 years, 172 is the base. I want to
Yeah.
say right in that range, and that it's got the escalator language. So if he somehow makes All NBA team or anything like that, then he bumps up to that full 207, which is the Trae Young. That's where Luka Doncic will be. So yeah, so I think that's a pretty good spot for them to be there. And then they re-signed Mike Muscala. That was a little bit of a surprise, but they've always liked him there. They like that he's kind of a vet big in there to work with their other young bigs, so like Alexei Pokusevsky and those guys. So
I'm just remembering, Keith, like it was one of my favorite, like, just understated tweets of the night. It just popped back into my head that when the Mike Muscala thing came across, I remember my tweet deck is just going berserk, right? Like, because there's so much going on.
'Cause it was early
and I
too, yeah.
just saw just enough of yours. I think you tweeted something like in response to Mike Muscala, you just tweeted like, I mean, okay,
Yeah,
or whatever. Like,
I guess.
I guess that's something like that.
Yeah.
Where I was like,
Yep.
yep, that is it. That's the reaction to Mike Muscala.
Yeah, that's it, right? They already traded Moses Brown and Al Horford out. They added Derek Favors in case anybody had forgotten that had happened in a salary dump from Utah, and then Kemba Walker. Clearly, they added him. We'll see if maybe one of these teams that misses out on a point guard gets a little more interested in Kemba Walker. Potentially in a trade. As of right now, I would guess no. With that, but you do have the Knicks. Everything that they did, other than re-signing Derrick Rose, they did not add a point guard today, other than Derrick Rose. So let's see what the Knicks do on day 2. They've got about $7 million more in cap space, so that could be targeted at one of these guys who hasn't been signed yet. But we'll see when we get there. Portland Trailblazers, their big deal was re-signing Norman Powell. 5 years, $90 million. So big chunk of change for Norman Powell, but
Duncan Robinson money, man.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that is. We'll refer to it as that now, the Duncan Robinson deal. But they added Ben McLemore from the Lakers, likely to be a minimum contract there. That he was going to get squeezed out by, I think, more sure things in LA.
Wayne Ellington.
Yeah, that's it. And that's exactly it. Wayne Ellington, well, again, we'll talk it when we get to the Lakers, but that's what
Hmm.
happened there. But I like that for Portland. They needed somebody who could, knock down some shots. And then they added Cody Zeller. He's going to be their new backup big. My guess is they're moving on from Enes Kanter. So Zeller will team up behind Yusuf Nurkic there. And then they lost Zach Collins. We're going to come back to that one. Oh, believe
Yes,
me,
when we
we're
get
going to
to the
come back to
Spurs.
that one
We're
when
gonna
we get
finish
to
with
the
that.
Spurs. But yeah. Well, all right, that's perfect. We'll finish with that one. I'll go on a
Yeah,
rant at the
that's
end
gonna be
of the
fun.
show here. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that any of these moves are got Damian Lillard saying, let me
Nope.
buy more real estate here in Portland and really, really lock down even further. But it's a start at least. Re-signing Norman Powell, adding Cody Zeller. All right, let's see where they go from here.
And the word was circulating that the Blazers are saying they want to keep both McCollum and Lillard.
Yep.
To me, that suggests that they weren't getting their asking price met for McCollum,
Agreed.
because I think it's pretty clear that it's time to make a move. But if you're not going to sell the guy for pennies on the dollar, so I think that's
Yeah, for the
probably
love
what
of
was
God, make
going
the
on.
McCollum Simmons trade already, and just so we can all
Please,
move
yes,
on.
so we
Like
can
it just
all
feel,
just
it feels like it's funny. It feels like maybe I'm dating myself a little bit here, but Ross, Rachel, like we know it's gonna
oh
happen.
God,
Just do it already, right? Like we're almost there. Uh,
they were on a break.
that's it. We're on a
Um,
break. Pivot.
the
Um, we'll pivot to the Utah Jazz. How's that?
oh, look at
Look at
that!
that.
Look
Segues.
at
This
that!
guys,
That's
they don't
impressive.
call us the best front office show on YouTube for nothing. Um, Utah lost Derek Favors. We already talked about that. Headed off to OKC. We didn't really say OKC. They're going to treat him like Al Horford, try to rebuild his value, see if they can build him back up and turn him into something, and then trade him later. Matt Thomas, they waived. They acquired him late, a shooter from Toronto. But their big deal, re-signed Mike Conley. That's why they got rid of Favors. 3 years, I want to say it was about 75 million for Conley. So roughly 24 to 25 million a year. Not bad. I think that's fine for him coming off his first All-Star game. They had to re-sign him. No way they could have replaced him with anything. And there were a couple teams. We'd heard Dallas maybe interested. So yeah, I think Utah, quietish day, but kind of did what they had to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know what? They got Mike Conley back, and so that's the important thing for them.
So Pacific.
Okay, so somebody mentioned in the chat, Trevor, I didn't know you did this too. Yeah, not only do I do this too, but you should definitely subscribe to the NBA Front Office
Absolutely,
YouTube
please
channel
do.
while you are at it.
All right, Colin, we get it, man. USA, we get it. We're all psyched about the USA. Calm down now.
He's still reacting to the Gold Cup from last night. That's got to be
That's
what it is,
Ah,
right?
man, how great was that? That was awesome.
That was a lot of
All right,
fun.
we'll save everybody from that at 1:30 in
Yes.
the morning soccer breakdowns. Golden State Warriors lost Kent Bazemore, headed off to the Lakers. We'll get into that in just a minute. Added Otto Porter Jr. and Otto Porter Jr. came in on the minimum. Chris Haynes
Amazing.
reported he had offers for more than that for 2 years at probably the taxpayer mid-level amount. But he went to the Warriors for 1 year on the minimum. So that's good work, because that leaves that taxpayer mid-level open for them to go sign somebody else, which but presumably they will do at some point. So here's the thing with Otto Porter Jr. He was starting to look a little rotund like me for a while there. So you gotta chill a little bit on this one. But if he's healthy, he can shoot, he can rebound. A decent backup forward for Golden State.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a steal for them at that price. I know everybody was
At the
shocked.
minimum, yeah. Yep.
They got him at the minimum. They're still a team that's rumored to be pursuing Patty Mills. When the Otto Porter deal first broke, we said, oh, then they're out on Patty Mills, because they obviously had to use their taxpayer mid-level to get Otto Porter. They did not. Got him on a minimum, so that's potentially they could still get both those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Clippers, they re-signed Nick Batum. So that's their thing. Kawhi Leonard, I mean, now it's got to be that he's going back to the Clippers, or, unless he's going to really throw everyone a curve and re-sign with the Spurs, which that is not. If that happens, I will walk to San Antonio to personally greet his airplane from here in Orlando. So he's going to return to the Clippers. The question is, what kind of contract? Right. I think that's all we're waiting on now is, he'll be back with the Clippers. And then, of course, does he play at all this upcoming season. What will that look like? But re-signing Nick Batum became big, became a very important player for that team. And then with Kawhi out, they really needed to bring him back. They still also have the taxpayer mid-level to spend. So, good chunk of change for the Clippers to still be working with here.
All right, moving on to my Los Angeles Lakers.
Let's
Keith,
do it.
this is one of the weirdest nights that I can remember for the Lakers, in that every single player that they came to terms with, that they agreed to terms with, is a former Laker. Four guys. Four guys. All former Lakers. Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Wayne Ellington. They bring all of these guys back, and yet here we are. You've got all these pieces coming in, and they are all former Lakers. And, of course, Dwight Howard. I don't know why I left him out there. But, look, this is a team that has a lot of roster spots to fill. They had 10 open. They only had 5 players under contract, and that's including a non-guaranteed guy in Alfonso McKinney. So plenty of roster spots to fill. These are all, I believe, veteran minimum guys that they're bringing in.
What it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah. All guys that they brought in. They still have that taxpayer mid-level exception to use, but veterans. I'm seeing a lot of jokes about how old this Lakers team is right now. Like right now, Taylor Horton-Tucker technically is still a restricted free agent. So the young guy on the roster is Anthony Davis at 28, and everybody else is over 30.
Yeah, I didn't think of it in those terms, but sure.
Yeah. So that's what the Lakers are looking at right now. You've got all old guys and all former Lakers that they've brought in. But I mean, it's clear what they're looking for. 2 things: threes and defense. And when you look at it through that lens, this all makes sense with Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Wayne Ellington, of course, being the shooter. And I liked the decision to go with Wayne. I really think it probably came down to, okay, if we're getting Wayne Ellington, then we're not bringing back Ben McLemore because you've got some duplication there. And I prefer Wayne Ellington of the two. A little bit better coming off of screens and things of that nature, and just a higher percentage shooter overall. And then Dwight Howard coming back. I don't think they ever really intended to lose Dwight Howard to the 76ers to begin with. He comes back into town. He's a big body. He's not going to play a ton of minutes, because if he plays a ton of minutes, he's going to foul out. But he's physical, can take some of that burden off of Anthony Davis in some minutes here and there. So no problems, but there's a lot more still to come, because they still have plenty of open roster spots.
Yeah, and the taxpayer mid-level, just like we said with the Clippers, with the Warriors, a couple teams in the East, it's starting to look like a little bit more spending power than maybe it did a couple days ago, just because guys are starting to get squeezed. So there's a good chance. I still think they need a point guard, right? Because you could have somebody behind Westbrook after Caruso left. Horton-Tucker can do that a little bit, but I think you want at least a pure point guard in there. They scream like a team that could use somebody like Ish Smith, right? I think he would be a great fit there. Patty Mills, of course, if they could.
They're one of the
lock
teams
him
in
down.
on him.
Who the hell knows what happens with Dennis Schroeder now?
That's the other thing.
I never campaign for people to get fired, but he's going to have a tough conversation with his agent, I imagine, after turning that down. Or his agent's going to be like, I told you to sign that 4 years, $84 million deal, or however that went. So, I really don't know what he's going to do, because the Spurs don't need a point guard. OKC already had him, and they don't need another guard. The Knicks maybe, but they've only got $7 million. And signing trades don't seem to be there. So Schroeder might be a guy who's on the non-taxpayer mid-level somewhere. Probably only for a year is my guess, and then tries to get back into the market and get back to a better place. But definitely misplayed his hand.
Hey, we've been talking about this for weeks now. We've talked about this, that there were more point guards out there than there were landing spots. And at some point, if we're playing musical chairs, the music was going to stop, and there were going to be some guys left standing when the money ran out. And that it could very well be Dennis Schroeder. That if you went through ranking these guys, hey, would you rather have Spencer Dinwiddie or Dennis Schroeder? I think most people say Spencer Dinwiddie. Would you rather have Chris Paul? Would you rather have Lonzo Ball? Would you rather, all these other point guards are on the market. Dennis Schroeder was kind of the low man on the totem pole, and that's exactly how this has played out so far. And I'm having a hard time coming up with a landing spot for him at this point. So we'll see where this goes. But it's almost like a mini Nerlens Noel situation. If you think back to when he turned down that deal with the Dallas Mavericks, that was like $72 million or something. Dennis Schroeder, same
Yep.
thing, turned down 4 years, 84 million with the Lakers, and now doesn't seem to have an obvious landing spot. He'll be somewhere, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
he's not getting that deal back that he had before. So it's going to be
Yep.
interesting to
Might
see what
not get a
happens.
starting job.
That too.
I mean, that's the other thing. Maybe the Pelicans look at him, right? But I'm guessing with Graham, Kira Lewis, and Nikhil Alexander Walker,
Yeah.
they probably feel kind of all right. I mean, I guess if you could get them for next to nothing, then maybe you do it there. But yeah, it's a tough spot. I know there were a lot of people hitting me up on Twitter, as I think through this show and the appearances I made with you all in Lakers Nation, Laker fans are hitting me up saying, "Hey, any chance we could still do a sign and trade?" I mean, I guess in theory, I just don't know where. There's just not a place that jumps out
Right.
that is screaming, we need to go get Dennis Schroeder right now. So, especially when Reggie Jackson's still out there,
Mm.
Kendrick Nunn,
Yes.
Patty Mills, that's the challenging part there too. So, let's see, where this one plays out. But yeah, I think the Lakers, I think they had a good day. I think all the guys they signed, yeah, we can make the jokes about them being old and
Hmm.
stuff, but they all have a fit. They all will play a role, and more to come. Right, the next couple
Yep.
days. Phoenix, right?
I
Phoenix, yeah,
think they
Phoenix.
got the bargain of the day today. Like
All right,
That
yeah,
Cameron Payne contract. I mean, and
yeah,
especially
it's a good one, right?
when just for just the timing of it, because the Cameron Payne contract hit and then the TJ McConnell contract hit. And I think a lot of people would put them in similar tiers.
It's a good call.
Makes that Cameron Payne deal look even better. I believe it's 3 years, 19 million. I loved what the Suns did there. I don't know how much I like the Chris Paul. I think they kind of had to do it.
I think it's great.
You think it's okay? Why?
Yeah, I have no problem with
Okay,
it.
but
Yeah.
he's going to be 57 when the deal is over, Keith? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
But here's the thing. So here's the thing with the Chris Paul
okay,
contract. You knocked 15, almost 15 million off this year. So already you did pretty
fair,
good.
yeah.
Next year, our big number, but if he's what he was this year, you're happy to pay him 30 million
Hmm.
next year. And it sounds like the third year is only partially guaranteed and the fourth year might be fully non-guaranteed.
Okay, I did
So
not know that.
yeah,
That's a
so
big
that's
deal.
that's the thing. Yeah, we'll see when that goes official what that actually looks like, with those. But there's been some reporting on that. And if you look at the way the initial reports came out of can be worth up to
Hmm.
120 million, that's always a trigger for me of all right. There's some kind of weird language in here, an option, incentive, something else. So yeah, so I don't mind it. They're going to be fine. I think Chris Paul's you know me. I think he'll be dribbling into pull up elbow jump shots until he's
Yep.
50 if he wants to. Yeah, and I think campaign great. They added JaVale McGee. This team that's without Dario Saric
Hmm.
for probably all of next season. So adding JaVale McGee, I think is a really good addition for them. And then Torrey Craig, that's a loss. I like him moving on to the Pacers, but they have a lot of wings there in
Yeah.
Phoenix already. With Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson. So I don't know how much Craig was going to play, for them anyway. So yeah, but I like the JaVale McGee addition quite a bit for them because I think he makes a lot of sense, and you can run a lot of that same rim run lob
Hmm.
actions that you run with DeAndre Ayton with JaVale McGee. You know, um, and then and of course you get the bonus of he's going to do something silly at some
That's
point that
right.
you didn't expect, and and that's always fun.
Absolutely. JaVale McGee is a lot of fun. He can be frustrating at times, but he's a lot of fun too.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That you can enjoy seeing him play out there. And I agree on the Chris Paul thing. If you've got a portion of that was my big concern is the back end of that contract. But if you've protected yourself by making at least a portion of it non-guaranteed, okay, then I would
Yep,
withdraw my complaint on that one. The
yep,
Sacramento Kings. I mean, the big move
yeah.
bringing back Rashawn Holmes. We talked about paying centers. I believe what did they give him? 55 million for Rashawn Holmes?
Yeah, all right. So let's talk about this
Okay.
one real quick. This one wins the award for most creatively descriptor of a contract
Oh.
of the night. They cannot pay him that much. They're restricted to his early bird. The most they can pay him is about 47-ish million. So so what they worded it was up to 55 million or whatever it was. And then it said because it includes a trade kicker and all this. So the only way he's ever going to get that amount is if they actually trade him.
Okay.
So that's already, I mean, maybe it's just that it's almost 2 a.m. I find that way funnier than
Well,
maybe it really should
most
be.
teams wouldn't present it that
But
way, though. Right? Like,
no,
that's
yeah,
why.
it's just weird.
Yeah.
That was just an agent, trying to say, hey, it could end up worth this much. And even that was a little too much. That it's only about 53 million will bump up to there. But all that silliness aside, great job.
Mhm.
They had to keep him. They kept him away from Dallas and a couple of these other teams. Toronto was rumored to maybe be after him with a limited ability to pay him. They did what they could and kept him. The Mo Harkless contract, I don't know. I just don't get
Yeah.
it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm not fully understanding why that was necessary. I guess they just wanted him for forward depth there. And then Alex Len coming in. Now the question is, they're going to also add Tristan Thompson, reportedly via trade. So now you got Holmes and Len and Thompson. That starts to be a lot, especially when you consider Marvin Bagley's best minutes might be spent at the 5. So let's see where they go. It's the Kings. They're perpetually kind of weird, but the Holmes contract is a win for sure.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's just fine. Look, this is a team that wants to make the playoffs. They want to kind of take that next step. We will see if they get there. I don't know, but look, I can't complain too much about any of the moves they made here. And I think a Buddy Hield trade is happening sooner rather than later. I think that's kind of the path that they're going to go down. I think they thought they had a Buddy Hield trade done with the Lakers, and then that fell apart with the Westbrook situation. I think they'll pivot to something else. It may take a little bit of time, but I do think they will ultimately move on there.
Trevor, I just realized we had over 1,500 people in here. What are you maniacs doing? It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. I love you guys.
That's right.
We love you all so much. Thank you for this support. Absolutely amazing. Give yourself a round of applause in the chat for hanging out with us this late here on Front Office Show here on YouTube. Unbelievable. Love it.
It's front office showtime, man. It's free agency.
Yeah, man.
This is must see
Free
TV
agency.
right now.
Yeah, you got to spend time with
That's
us. So
right.
We love you for that. All right, let's Dallas.
Last division here. Let's go.
Let's
The
see.
Dallas
Yeah,
Mavericks.
man,
Dallas is. I almost feel bad for the Dallas. But they are the team that just is perpetually in the mix for stars, but just
Yeah.
doesn't seem to land them for whatever reason. They tend to get overlooked for. And I thought, look, Kawhi, if he's going to go anywhere, man, wouldn't that be amazing? Luka and Kawhi Leonard, not going to happen. I thought the Reggie Bullock signing was fine. Like, if you've got Luka, surround him with shooters. Reggie Bullock makes some sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know that the Mavs really took a big step forward here.
Yeah, it was funny. Josh Eberle on Twitter said something earlier in the day is the Mavs are like the Team Rocket from Pokemon. I think it's Pokemon is the name of the show, but the guys who fight Pokemon, he's like, they just get beat up. They come in with all these great plans and then get beat up for 25 minutes and it's over. I said they're kind of like Cobra and G.I. Joe, where they take a whole bunch of shots but never hit one. And then he's like, yeah, like stormtroopers in a hallway. So he kind of covered all of the pop culture references there for the Mavs free agency plans. But yeah, they came in, they could add all this cap space. Sounded like they were in on a whole bunch of stuff. And I mean, re-signing Tim Hardaway Jr., I think that's good. He already knows how to play with Luka. That's really good to have guys who know how to play with Luka. That's why they were content to move on from Josh Richardson, because that fit wasn't very good there. So Moses Brown, who they got in the Richardson trade. All right, let's see. They've done some stuff with athletic bigs who can do things in the past. Sterling Brown, all right. Don't hate it. Wing with size, has done some stuff, shows he can do a little bit. The Bullock trade, as we said, kind of like that, or signing. I like that one. Let's see how they structure it. They might do it as a sign and trade, bring him into the Josh Richardson TPE that they created the other day, and then that would leave the mid-level for them to use. So if they do that, that's that's a little more spending power. Sounds like they still would like to maybe get involved in a point guard. This could maybe be a Dennis Schroeder landing spot. But I think a lot of that depends on, are they going to do something for Goran Dragic or not? Because if they do Goran Dragic, then no, they're not going to go spend any money on Dennis Schroeder there. And then they're re-signing Boban. So, of course, they win free agency
just for that,
because they're re-signing Boban.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Tim Hardaway Jr. contract, he's a tough shot maker. I worry that if that shooting percentage dips a little bit, that becomes less of a value there. But look, I mean, with how well he played, you got to bring him back, and I'm going to continue to call it the
Yep.
Tim Hardaway Jr. trade. It is no longer the Kristaps Porzingis trade.
Yep.
The Houston Rockets,
Houston.
Keith, sell me on if you can. Sell me on Daniel Tice. Why is this the right move?
Yeah, I love Daniel Tice. I think he's great. I think he would have been a great fit on, about 7 or 8 other
Sure.
teams. I don't understand it too much with Houston.
Okay.
You already have Christian Wood. Best position is the 5. You drafted Alperen Schengen. Best position is probably going to be the 5. The kid that's getting the Jokic comps for his offensive game. And then Usman Garuba, who USA is playing against right now. Quick update: Team USA is up 56-47 with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. So starting to figure it out a little bit here. But Garuba, maybe best position might be as a small ball 5. So you go out and add another 5? I don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I am thrilled for Daniel Tice that he got paid. I think he's been good. This is going to get roped into. It's going to be weird. This one, it may actually tie to the Lakers creating a trade exception, because I think what is going to happen here is Houston has a Victor Oladipo trade exception that they're highly unlikely to use. So it sounds like they may bring Tyson to that one, which would allow the Bulls to create a new trade exception, which they would bring Caruso into on a sign and trade, and then the Lakers will create a trade exception of roughly 7-8 million or so in that range. So look for that. I think two things that are going to happen here with the Lakers. Caruso is going to end up being a sign and trade with Houston and with Chicago. They'll create a pretty nice trade exception that will just a nice piece of tool to have roster building wise. Then I think the Westbrook trade gets roped into this Dinwiddie move, because that'll be how those a couple of those players will get rerouted to Brooklyn. They'll just reading some tea leaves, thinking of the way these things should come together. So, and I'll tweet about that later for those who want to read it in tweet form before I head off to Dreamland here at some point. They lost Sterling Brown, lost Kelly Olynyk. Here's where Tice, you wanted sold a little bit. He can shoot. He's a pretty good defender. He's already the best defensive big on this roster by far and away. So he'll be fine, I think, next to Christian Wood. My guess is they'll play together quite a bit, because Olynyk and Wood played together, I think, a very little bit. But, because Wood can score inside and outside, Tice is, pretty good on the roll. Decent jump shot on him. I think they'll play together some. And then the odd one to me, though, even more so than Tice, was re-signing David Nwaba. 3 years, 15 million. I like David Nwaba a lot, but that team's now got they have a ton of guards. On that team, they've got I'm gonna pull it up because I was running through it, but you've got Eric Gordon, Kevin Porter. You just drafted Jalen Green. You got Jayshawn Tate already there. That's just a lot of guys. I guess if you're Houston, you're gonna be bad. So you're just trying to add talent and keep resources, and you'll let it all sort out as it comes. But yeah, just a little weird, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. And look, Houston, they could wind up being the worst team in the NBA next season, right? They're going to be right in the mix. So fit wise, I'm not going to worry too much about fit when they're playing for draft picks. The Memphis Grizzlies, the Grizzlies,
quiet day.
Yeah, real quiet. Really didn't do much.
Yeah, nothing really. They waived Jonte Porter the other day. They're going to renounce Justice Winslow. That's how they'll complete the trade with Memphis. That sees Valanciunas go out and Adams and Bledsoe come in. We've already talked about that in depth, so let's move on. It's getting late. Let's go to the Pelicans.
Let's do it. The New Orleans Pelicans. Interesting. I mean, they make the trade to get Devontae Graham. Fill the point guard spot there for them. So that's
gave up a first-round pick,
which is interesting. So
I
had a lot of people asking why, if they created all that cap space, right? They created all that cap space in their big trade with the Grizzlies. Why did they give that first round pick to Charlotte when they could have tried to just sign him outright?
Yeah, this is kind of the Malcolm Brogdon deal with the Pacers when he left the Bucks. Rather than have it be a whole, all right, then we'll do an offer sheet and maybe we'll match, maybe we won't, and hold everything up. It's, what is it going to take to get this guy? All right, first rounder, done. Let's move on. Because the number he signed for, basically the mid-level exception money, roughly, $10 million or so a year for Graham. That's a number that Charlotte probably would have just matched on. In the
Mhm.
end, he's that's about his value. I think that's a very fair value contract. Now the question that you could have is why not just keep Lonzo?
Yeah.
Sounds like maybe he didn't really want to be there anymore,
Hmm.
though. Is my guess is he was ready to move on. They're going to add Tomas Satoransky and I already forgot Garrett Temple in that trade as well there. So they're kind of net in Graham, Satoransky, Temple, and Valanciunas. Adams, Ball, Bledsoe out. Probably even maybe a slight. I could lean towards that being a little bit of a win. I think Graham and Satoransky, Ball, Bledsoe, that's probably pretty even. So it kind of comes down to Valanciunas and Adams. How you feel about that? But yeah, I think it's all right.
When I'm looking at the Lonzo deal, I would have just kept Lonzo if I was the Pelicans. Just looking
Sure.
at that piece of it. But
Yeah,
again, yeah, if he doesn't want to be there, okay. But
that's my
there's
guess.
nothing that they got coming back where I thought, oh, okay, that's a good. I understand why they decided to part ways with Lonzo. It didn't make sense. So that tells me that he was probably pushing to go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Spurs.
get into the fun one. San Antonio
I
Spurs.
don't get it,
No
man.
one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's
I don't mind the Doug McDermott signing.
sure.
You needed another forward. You needed a shooter.
Hmm.
Great. You went out. Is it an overpay at 14 million a year? Yeah, probably a little bit, but I mean Duncan Robinson just got 5 years, 90 million. 3 years, 42 million for McDermott. Not gonna kill you.
Hmm.
I'm fine with it.
Zach Collins.
The Zach Collins, though. So here's my thing.
Okay.
If you why not just throw an offer sheet at John Collins and force the Hawks to match? And people are going to come back and say, well, you just said it'll tie up your cap sheet for a couple days and all this stuff. Big deal. So what? Then you couldn't sign Zach Collins
Hmm.
for 7 years or 7 years, 3 years and 22 million, $7 million a year. That one better have all kinds of non guarantees on it and team option
Mm.
and basically everything that you can to protect. I like Zach Collins. I thought he was going to be really, really good, but he hasn't been healthy in like 2.5 seasons now. So I don't get it. Jang and Lyles out, Collins and McDermott in. I don't know. I mean, I like McDermott the best out of all those guys. I like Jang and Lyles significantly more than
Yeah.
Collins, given the health. 3 years, 22 million. This one is just boggles my mind. I don't get it at all.
It's if he's healthy, sure. Right? No problem. If he was healthy,
But he's
but he's
not.
not.
We just heard
He's
he
not.
just had
He
another
he broke
surgery.
his foot
Yeah.
rehabbing a broken foot. Like
Yeah.
you can't just spend money on that. It almost it occurred to
Yeah.
me, is this a Dylan Brooks and Marshawn Brooks situation here where they offered something
Did the
to
wrong
Zach
call?
Collins thinking it was John Collins and they just didn't, but if the dollar amount was much
Somebody
higher,
called
then I could get
Pop.
it.
It was, it was the middle of the night. He's prepping for
Yeah.
this game. He's, trying to get a good night's rest in. And they're like, "Hey, Collins, you good? 722 or 7 million a year, 22 million total." He's like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And he was thinking they meant 22 million a year for John Collins.
Oh, that could
I
be
don't
it.
know. It's confusing. It's beyond baffling to me. This one is every other deal on the board, even the ones I didn't like as much, I can kind of see the rationale behind. I don't get it.
Yeah.
This one makes no sense to me. It is by far and away my least favorite deal. If we were going to pick losers of day one, I'd probably put them at the
Yep.
top, just because of that one. I just think that's junk.
Who were
So,
they bidding
but
against to offer that much?
yeah,
Like no
I have
one.
no idea. Mr. and Mrs. Collins. I don't know.
Right.
I don't get it, man. And again, I liked Zach Collins coming out of Gonzaga when he went to Portland. I thought he was going to be pretty good. He just hasn't been healthy. So just that one is very confusing.
Yeah.
All right, to close it out, a couple people asked for favorite deals
Oh yeah.
of the first day here. I really liked Lonzo's deal. I
That's
think
near the
that's
top
really
of
good.
mine.
That would be near the top of mine.
The Cameron Payne deal.
Let's see. Yeah, the campaign deal, fantastic value
Yep.
there. So I really like that one. I like the Jeff Green for
Yes.
5 million a year. For him to Denver, I think that one's pretty good. Batum, we haven't seen terms on that yet, so let's see, what that comes back at. That might have been the taxpayer mid level.
Hmm.
Or that might be one of let's see what else we do, and then he kind of decides after that. I think that might be happening maybe with the Lakers too. Could be let's see what else we do.
Otto Porter
But
Jr. winds up
Yeah, that's a good one.
being
Yeah,
one.
especially at the minimum.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
At the minimum, it's a it's a low risk, potentially medium reward. It may turn out to be
Yeah.
nothing, right? If he's injured and out of shape and stuff like that, but your risk is so small that it's definitely one that you take.
Torrey Craig and TJ McConnell.
Mhm.
I think both got fair deals for what they are. Yeah, the Dinwiddie one, the too many unknowns. We don't know
Mhm.
what's going to happen there. Deals I didn't like. Zach Collins.
Jack Collins.
Um,
We know you
uh,
didn't like Muscala much, but that's such a small dollar
yeah,
amount.
I mean that
It's-
was more just like
it's just
whatever. Yeah.
Right.
That one I didn't necessarily really care all that much about. Garrett Temple sounds like you get 2 years guaranteed
Mhm.
in that sign and trade. I would have liked it better if it was only 1 year. But yeah, I tweeted this. I liked it better when we had some really stupid teams that did deals where it's like, what the hell is this
Right.
for this guy? I mean, the only one truly that we have is Zach Collins. And it feels so weird that it came from the Spurs, which up until about 2 years ago, I would have just assumed Zach Collins is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be great, and this is going to work out amazing. That mystique is gone for me. I'm out. I don't with that. Yeah, I'm not going to go back through it again at 2:00 in the morning and hammer
No.
him even further. But
Around these parts,
yeah.
we call those kind of deals Mozgovs. So, yeah, we
yeah, it might end up. Yeah. Let's hopefully they protected themselves. And if they did significantly, I'll come back. I'll give them a culpa and I'll apologize to everybody in San Antonio there for that one. Because I like the McDermott deal for that.
Yeah.
I think that one makes sense.
Yep.
The Devontae Graham one, just a little weird because they had to give up a first round pick. So I think that is a little yeah. I don't like giving up a first round pick. But
agreed.
there it was, man. Everybody. We hit them all 30.
How telling is it that the Pelicans would rather give up a first round pick for the privilege of paying Devontae Graham than talk to Dennis Schroeder?
Yeah, pretty bad.
Right?
Yeah, that's bad.
That's bad.
Yeah, I mean, Schroeder misplayed his hand.
Yeah.
Big time. All around, completely blew it. Or we got something good. It's just about Team USA.
Oh.
I get the tweet notification. I was all excited. I'm like, oh, we have a deal to break down
Nope.
at the end. Nope.
All right. Well,
my guess is we're probably about done for the night.
Yep.
With deals about 2:00 is when everybody says, all right, let's pack it in for the night. We'll hit this back tomorrow morning. But guys, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight here. Everybody who's here on the live stream, thanks for hanging in there. Everybody who's going to listen to this later or watch this later, we love you guys. Thank you so much. We have not recorded since then, or maybe we did, I don't remember, but thank you everybody for the birthday wishes on the other video. I saw all the comments on there. It made me feel really good, so thanks for that too. This is great. We'll be back tomorrow.
Yep.
Hopefully with even more to talk about and new stuff that comes through. So yeah, it's fun start to free agency. Let's hopefully get the trade market moving a little bit tomorrow.
I think
that'd be kind of fun.
I think it will.
Yeah, I think so too.
And today was free agent focused. I think as this stuff starts to die down, the trade market's going to pick up.
I agree.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel and turn on those notifications as well. And of course, like this video. Till next time.